Good morning, friends. Welcome to week 39 of the Bible in 365. Today, we are beginning a 3-week journey in which we'll be reading the prophet Isaiah. And Isaiah is the first of the prophetic books that we're going to read in the Old Testament. And for the rest of the year, all of our Old Testament reading will be readings of the prophets. So let's spend a moment and just think about what is this prophetic literature that we're reading. Well, recall that a prophet is a messenger from God. Prophets are called by God to deliver God's message through their words and through their actions. And so each of the prophetic books in the Old Testament captures the words, the fundamental message, and the actions of a particular prophet, a prophet like Isaiah or Jeremiah or Malachi. And each of these prophets ministers or provides the message of the Lord during a specific period in Israel's history. And so all of that history that we read back in Samuel and Kings and the like, it can really help us in understanding a prophet's message because it can help us place the prophet in context. Different prophets have different messages based on what's actually happening in the history of Israel at that time. Now, the prophets are divided into two sections in the Old Testament. There are what's called the major prophets. They're called major only because they're longer prophetic books. That's the book of Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel. And then there's what's called the minor prophets. The minor prophets are 12 short prophetic books at the end of the Old Testament. And here we're talking about Daniel, Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi. That's sometimes called the Book of the 12 because those books are all so short that together they could fit on one scroll. So we're going to be reading these prophetic books throughout the rest of the year. So let's talk for just a moment about the book of Isaiah. So Isaiah is often referred to as the greatest writing prophet. Isaiah writes a very long prophetic book. He is a prophet who lives in Jerusalem about 740 years before the birth of Christ. And his ministry has its greatest influence during the reign of King Hezekiah. Now, historically, this is a period in Israel's history that's called the divided monarchy. This is when Israel is divided into a northern kingdom and a southern kingdom. And what Isaiah sees in his lifetime is this constant cycle in which the Israelites, both south and north, continue to fall into patterns of idolatry. And when they don't worship God well, they don't love their neighbor well. And so that idolatry often leads to the oppression of the poor. And so Isaiah is tasked with bringing a word of judgment against the people of Israel because of their unfaithfulness. And he's constantly calling out their unfaithfulness and calling them to return to the Lord and warning them that if they don't, God's judgment will come. And he ultimately prophesies that the northern kingdom of Israel will be judged when God will allow the Assyrian Empire to destroy and scatter the northern kingdom. He also prophesies a day when God will allow the Babylonian kingdom to come and exile or destroy the southern kingdom of Israel, and all of this in judgment for their sins. Now, at the same time that Isaiah brings a message of judgment against the Israelites, he also brings a message of salvation. And we find throughout the book of Isaiah a forward looking, hope filled future in which God will make good on God's promises to bless the world through Israel. And so we'll find throughout Isaiah uh, foreshadowing of the coming Davidic king who will be the Messiah, who will suffer for the sins of the people, and will establish a renewed kingdom of justice and righteousness in Israel. Now, some scholars, when they read Isaiah, ponder whether we are reading the work of one prophet or whether there's two or maybe three prophets contained in the book of Isaiah. And the primary reason for this is because there's kind of a dividing line in Isaiah between chapters 1 to 39 and chapters 40 to 66. The latter, chapters 40 to 66, all speak of various events and moments that would have happened after Isaiah's lifetime. And so some have pondered maybe there's a second Isaiah who comes along after the first Isaiah. We don't really know his name, that he's doing the work of prophesying at this later time period. I'll be honest, I've never been able to make sense of what to make of some of these proposals. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. Maybe there's one Isaiah, maybe there's two. What I do know is that what matters most is that all of the book of Isaiah is the Word of God. This is all the inspired Word of God. And so it all reveals God's truth to us. So we'll have a lot more to say about Isaiah next week. But for now, that should be enough to get you started. So have a great week reading Isaiah, and I'll look forward to seeing you right back here next week for more of the Bible in 365.